In Proverbs 3:5, it tells us, trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding. And yet, so many Christians continue to lean on their own understanding, even though the Bible tells us not to lean on our own understanding. In fact, there's two places in Proverbs that it tells us that in the multitude of counselors there is safety. And yet, instead of seeking feedback and wisdom from seniors that are educated in the Bible and have many years living good Christian lives, we still, we trust in our own understanding, don't we? We just consistently trust in our own understanding. Psychologists have noted that there's something about humans that just doesn't want to admit when they are wrong. Specifically, one thing they have found was that when a person pays too much for a car, which is easily documented with Kelly's Blue Book value, instead of the person admitting that they paid too much for the car, they try to justify it, and somehow they convince themselves, they really, honestly convince themselves, they convince themselves to believe in a lie. They convince themselves that the car is worth more than the Kelly Blue Book value, and therefore they don't have to admit to themselves that they paid too much for the car. They would rather believe a lie than they would admit that they were wrong. You see, because, they trust in their own understanding. Even though the Bible tells us in the multitude of counselors there is safety. So, there is one group of people that I have met that readily admits when they are wrong. And it's the only group of people I have met that readily admit when they are wrong. Now, I have met some individuals that don't belong to this group that do admit that they are wrong. But as a group, this is the only group of people that I have really met that regularly admits that they're wrong. And this group of people are recovering alcoholics. They've found a recovery program that is a 12-step program, and part of their program is to consistently evaluate themselves, to do self-examination, and when they are wrong, they promptly admit it. It's amazing. They actually don't trust in their own understanding, and they actually seek out a multitude of counselors, even though they're, as a group, they're not Christians. A lot of them aren't even Bible-believing people, but they do trust in a multitude of counselors, and they do admit when they're wrong. Now, I know that currently we are in a pandemic. Currently, as I make this video, it is January of 2021, and hopefully we're at the tail end of the coronavirus pandemic. We have a vaccine that's out, and they're trying to get people vaccinated. But in the news, we see oftentimes some pretty high-profile people that have gotten sick, and oftentimes these high-profile people are the same people that did not want to wear masks, and they were discouraging wearing masks. And, we know that masks aren't 100%, and they're no guarantee. You could still get sick by wearing a mask, but obviously, if you don't wear a mask, you have a much higher chance of getting sick. And we see the news of a lot of high-profile people that were not wearing masks, and then they get sick. And do we hear them admitting that they were wrong? Or are they like the used car buyer that pays too much for a car and just cannot admit that they paid too much for a car? There is an exception that I have noted, and I think he is noteworthy, and that is the former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie. He kind of discouraged wearing a mask, didn't think it was necessary, didn't think that a mask would provide any protection, and he got sick, and he almost lost his life. And he came out of the hospital saying, he said some words that most people don't ever say their entire life. He said, I was wrong. And he said that he was wrong more than once. He said he was wrong not to wear a mask. He was wrong to discourage others from not wearing a mask. He was wrong, he was wrong, he was wrong, and he admitted he was wrong. Now, I don't want to be guilty of a pun, but my friends, the former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, he is a big man.